Hello, what is up, everyone? This is Gary A. Swaby, and you're now listening to the Powercast. And today we're going to be recapping Power Book 3. Sorry, I almost said Ghost. Raising Kanan, Season 4, Episode 9. And the title of the episode is It's About That Time. And I'm joined today by Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. How are you doing, Richard?
Doing good, Gary. What's up, listeners and viewers?
What's up, indeed? And yeah, this week, unfortunately, we don't have Miss Dana Abercrombie. She had a power outage in her building today, unfortunately. And she's also very busy with events and stuff like that as well. So, yeah, she won't be able to make it on this episode, but we're definitely going to make sure everyone is here for the finale episode next week. But yeah, too bad we couldn't get Dana's thoughts on this episode because yeah, it was an interesting episode to say the least. But big shouts to Miss Dana Abercrombie. I hope she's well and everything. And yeah, big shouts to the community also, the people leaving comments. Lots of great comments in our videos and stuff like that. So please do leave your comments on this episode because I do want to see what some of the thoughts and theories are after this one. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. You can also check out the koalition.com. That's coalition with a K. That's our website where we cover gaming and entertainment, and a lot of other things. We have interviews, we have videos, gameplay stuff, a lot of good stuff. And if you are a gamer, Summer Games Fest is coming up fast, and we're going to be on top of that, covering that event. Richard is going to be out there, on foot. So yeah, look out for all that good stuff. We also have a gaming channel to check out, a YouTube channel. We also have the entertainment channel. So yeah, go check out all the content that we've been producing because we're definitely looking to take it up a notch soon. But with that being said, let's get right to our takeaways for this week of this episode. And this week it is Richard's turn to go first, and he is Lou's replacement apparently. So Lou is already Lou was replacing Marvin. Lou was already replacing Marvin, and now Richard's about to replace Lou, apparently. So, Richard, when you're ready, give us your takeaways.
Yeah, so I will explain that name in a minute. Let me just say this. Yeah, shout out to Dana. As Gary said, she did have a power outage today. She also is attending a Raising Kanan related event. So stay tuned to the channel because I'm sure she will be talking about that in the future. And of course, as Gary said, we'll definitely have her back for the finale because I think there will be a lot more to discuss. So as for this episode, I also thought it was a great episode of Raising Kanan. A lot of things happening very quickly now that they're getting to the end of the season. And I do think that it is safe to say Gary's prediction about there being a possible cliffhanger, I think that is going to happen. But we'll get into that a little bit later. All right, so let me go to my takeaways first and foremost. So my first takeaway, I want to talk about messy Marvin in this episode, okay, because Marvin has been doing a lot of moves. And shout out to Gary. He is Marvin's life insurance advisor. So Marvin's going to definitely need his advice, going into the finale and for the rest of this show, I think, because Marvin he got a lot going on. So in this episode, we figured, obviously last week, he took out Londell, Early Tyler's cousin, right outside the shop, all because, Londell and Early Tyler decided to take business into their own hands and take out that guy who was connected to the mafia, the mob. So the made man. So obviously, Early Tyler found out about this, and he was the one to come at Marvin and say, hey, I know you took out Londell, And what I found interesting about that scene is just Marvin just outright confessed. Very bold move to just outright tell him, yeah, I did it, and what are you going to do? And I thought to myself, now that's not a smart move. Now, obviously, we know that Early Tyler is not going to try to take out Marvin, but it makes you wonder as a viewer, what was he going to do next? And obviously, he's angry at Marvin, so he approaches Stefano and tells Stefano what happened. And later in this episode, you did see Stefano. Now he's not quite as trusting as far as anything that Marvin says, because he has a conversation with Raquel, and he does tell Raquel in that conversation that Marvin had came up with the idea to replace her, when really that was not what happened. This was Stefano's suggestion. So Stefano was also getting very messy with the way that he is talking. And I will give a shout out to Dana as well, because she posted an interview she did with Stefano, aka Tony Danza, earlier this week. And he made a comment in that interview saying he wants to get in between Marvin and Raquel. So you're seeing that once again, it started this season and now it's escalated to another level. So I do want to see where they're going with that. But pretty much Marvin now is in a very vulnerable place as far as his relationship with Stefano. I want to see where they're going with that. Now, to continue with Marvin in this episode, they also do have an instance where he is basically looking out for Amber, Gerald's daughter from last season. Earlier this season, we saw that she got new foster parents. And then we do find out that she hasn't been going to school. So Marvin decides he pays to get some information to find out where she's at. He does get the address, and then he goes to that house and basically he takes out both of her foster parents. Now, I must admit, that was a very shocking scene to see, because I didn't know that they were going to continue to give this particular, I know this girl has gone through a lot with what happened to her father. So I was very surprised that they're still showing her going through a lot now, even with these foster parents. And obviously, as a fan of Marvin, you're rooting for him to do his job, take care of, anytime he's looking out for somebody, you're always going to root for the character. So I was glad to see him defend Amber at this moment, but I was very concerned when I saw that. And then obviously he takes out both the husband and the wife. He tells her that he's going to circle back on her at a later time and check out on her. But that little girl has gone through quite a lot. So it kind of makes you curious, with all this activity that Marvin has going on in the show, it makes you concerned about what is going to happen to the character in the future. Obviously, he still has this whole war with Unique. You have the issues with Stefano, and now you have all these bodies that are being that people being killed with your weapon. So it makes you wonder what's going to happen to this character moving forward. And obviously, one thing we do know is, because he was so bold in how he spoke to Early Tyler, I can only assume that Early Tyler is going to tell all of this information to Unique. And there you go. Unique will have his target. He can go after him. But again, we'll have to see how that all plays out. But obviously, yes, like I said, Marvin has a lot going on in the show right now. So I will be very concerned for that character. But I am also very curious to see which direction they're going to take his storyline in from here on out. So stay tuned for that. My second takeaway of this episode, I want to talk about Lou, the Dragon Slayer, because as Gary mentioned earlier, my name in this episode, Lou's replacement, that is because I will be replacing Lou as the person taking over at the record studio now. B-Rilla has to get an album done, so I hope I will be able to do a better job when I step into the next episode and try to direct him in getting this album done. But we'll see what happens. But no, on all seriousness, and Lou, obviously, the last episode, you saw that he was very excited when he actually took out those guys that are working with B-Rilla. You saw he had a smile on his face. I'll get into that a little bit later. But he was very happy to do that. So pretty much this episode, the police are finally questioning, him and B-Rilla, and Amani happens to be there when they're questioning them. He tells them that he actually arrived at her place at 11 o'clock, even though that was not the correct time. But one thing we know about Amani's character is that she is very annoying. She asks us so many questions. She's very observant. So her coming to Lou later in this episode and saying that she wanted to break up with him because she didn't trust him, I saw that coming from a mile away. And I'm glad, because, again, I didn't really like that character too much. Obviously, I like the idea of them working together because they had some chemistry, and then they work with a lot of talented artists. So it made you wonder if something was going to happen with that relationship. I didn't really want it to get romantic, but it did go in that direction. But yeah, so she decides she needs to break up with him and she doesn't want to work with him, anymore. So this makes Lou decide he's going to quit working for the record label. And I like how he had the conversation with the owner guy, basically telling him that he can get work elsewhere. He says that he's a street guy, so he's loyal to the streets and he'll find work on the streets. So he does tell B-Rilla that he left, and B-Rilla does come to him and say, hey, if you need any help, let me know, because I need money. I got a family I got to support. So B-Rilla will be getting involved in all of this war stuff with Unique, and that fast forwards to towards the end of the episode where he does tell Raquel he wants to rejoin her in this war with Unique. And of course, they meet up with Unique. Once again, I always say fantastic writing on Raising Kanan, but also fantastic soundtrack. That perfect song, Smiling Faces. And then you see Unique smiling at the end of the episode because he's now happy that now Raquel has to come to him to try to make something happen. So I thought that was fantastic. Obviously, it makes you wonder, does Raquel actually want to work with Unique, or does she have another plan to try to take him out by posing as somebody who wants to work with him? So I do want to see where they're going with that in the finale. That'll be quite interesting. But we'll see what's going to happen next. And finally, get to my final takeaway of this episode is about Kanan, because there was a lot that happened with Kanan in this episode. Let me say first and foremost, that was a very cold-blooded kill by Snaps on Crystal. I was not expecting that to be as brutal as it was. Obviously, I said last week when that character got off that bus, that was the end of that character. So when they showed the trailer at the end of the episode last week, I was surprised we still saw her, but you knew that was going to be for a limited time. And then, of course, how it went down, where she basically tells Smack that Kanan always gets angry at his mom, that he thinks that she killed Famous. And of course, they use that to their advantage to basically manipulate Kanan. So I'm curious to see where they're going with that, because I have a lot of questions about that. But pretty much to continue with what happens prior to that, he does meet up with Jukebox. Jukebox actually sets up a meeting between him and Raquel. And that's a very interesting conversation because, again, you see just how fractured their relationship is. Kanan doesn't trust his mom, doesn't trust anything that she says, and doesn't really want to be around her at all, which is very heartbreaking. You know, you got Mother's Day coming up here in the U.S., so that kind of hits a little hard, you know. But, pretty much Kanan he's still looking for answers. He decides to meet up with Unique. And let me just say this, as a fan of Raising Kanan, I am so glad they finally had a conversation between Unique and Kanan. You understand that there's respect. Unique has a lot of respect for Kanan and leaves the door open to working with Kanan. But Kanan also knows that Unique would also see that as an opportunity to further anger his mom. So Kanan does think to some extent, which is good. But yeah, pretty much Unique tells him if he hears anything about Crystal, he will let him know, vice versa. And I do think that it'll be very interesting to see where that relationship goes. And as I mentioned already, you know, when Kanan does go to Pops and Smack, this is when they basically tell him, oh yeah, we found out that your mom killed Famous. Now, I will say this really fast. All right. Kanan, I understand that he's very angry at his mom, so on and so forth. But what I think is very interesting is that he is not really paying attention to, I kind of find it interesting he's not paying attention to who could be the people who are the real suspects in what happened to Famous. Obviously, he's going to know about what happened with D-Wiz. This is why he's very suspicious of Raquel. I understand that. But you also saw, as Kanan, you also saw Pops and Smacks talking to the cops. Why would you not think that they could have had something to do with this? I think that's very interesting. And I do think that, you know, Jukebox may help him solve this because, again, she did talk with Garcia in this episode. She found out about what happened to Crystal as far as her body being found. Obviously, she didn't tell Kanan this yet. So that's probably what's going to happen when the next episode starts. But the thing is that Kanan really needs to pay attention to details and not just suspect that Raquel had to do with all of what happened. So I do want to see where they're going with that. But the last thing that I will say is that to go back to the conversation that Kanan had with Unique, Kanan did pick up on the fact that Unique said that he knew about OC before Kanan asked about OC when he's talking about, oh yeah, this guy that was working with you also got taken out. I thought it was very interesting that Kanan picked up and then said, hey, so you knew about that also, right? But if Kanan thought about it more, the reason why Unique knows about this is because Unique is the one that took out OC and also the one that stole his money. So I want to see if eventually he puts 2 and 2 together, because he needs to figure this stuff out at some point. That's why I think Jukebox will be vital in helping him figure out certain things. But I do want to see where they're going with that. But overall, like I said, it was a great episode. Always fantastic writing, fantastic soundtrack. And I'm very curious to see what happens in the finale next week.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree. Like Jukebox, I feel like she's gonna be very important to Kanan in terms of him like being more of a thinker, because he often gets outsmarted by these other, characters around him, like Snaps and Pop and Unique. Like, they pretty much just run game on him and twist his head. Like they twist his hatred of his mother against him and stuff like that. So he definitely needs someone like Jukebox to kind of coach him on how to kind of, think outside the box a little bit. And we know that the adult Kanan was very good at that. In OG Power, he was good at thinking outside the box and figuring things out. He was very street smart, um, and militant. So yeah, he definitely that's one area he really needs to grow in. This version of Kanan. So I agree with that. Also, yeah, like one of the first things I texted you when we was talking about this episode was that kill on Crystal. Like when Pops killed Crystal, that was very cold. Like that was so cold. Like, and just the way they did it by drugging her as well, and then as soon as she gave up the information and she had no more use for her, she just killed her. Like that was straight cold, for sure. And yeah, since you're replacing Lou at the studio, you might as well join me in the studio back here, right here. So come through to the studio. but
Yeah.
but yeah, good takeaways as usual. And yeah, now it is my turn to give my takeaways. So my takeaways kind of all blend into each other. So I'm just gonna go for it. So yeah, I got to start off with Marvin. This is the reason my tagline down here is Marvin's life insurance advisor this week, because it's not looking good for the character at all. Um, this whole season he's been on a rampage of just killing people left and right. In this episode, we see what happens when he goes to see the little girl. I keep forgetting her name, but Gerald's daughter. He goes to see what's going on with her, and she's in a bad situation with the foster parents, and yeah, somehow this turns violent. I mean, I understand why, because he wants to protect her. He doesn't want her to be in a bad situation, but it was very messy, how he went about that, and I'm sure it's going to come back on him in some way. But there's a lot of things that can come back on Marvin right now, like because he's just in a real bad situation right now. So, like I've been constantly saying, he is he's either gonna get locked up, or next week might be his last episode. To be honest with you, because it's looking bad. Um, and I'm leaning more towards him being killed just because of the way things are panning out, like how the story is being told and stuff. Like just the fact that Lou is already kind of stepping back into the game to kind of replace him and be Raquel's top guy or whatever. Like that looks, it's like it's all kind of adding up and leading to a potential Marvin, death in the next episode. But there's various ways it could go. As for who would kill him if he did get taken out, that's a good question because with what happened in this episode, some people might think that Raquel has good motivations for setting him up. I don't, but personally, I don't think she would do that. I think she's all about the family, even though she's often at odds with the family. Like, she has a lot of disagreements with Marvin. She has disagreements with Lou. She has disagreements with Kanan, her mother. Like, she's at odds with everybody in the family. But I feel like everything we've seen of this family so far is that they put blood first. They put the family first, before any other problems or whatever. So based on that, I think, I think that Raquel realizes that Stefano is kind of running game on her a little bit, because that conversation that Marvin and Stefano had, it was definitely Stefano who was kind of pushing that idea of him taking over Raquel, but he kind of flipped it and made it seem like Marvin came to him and talked about replacing her, which wasn't the case. But I think Raquel sees right through that. Personally, I think she knows that Marvin didn't do that, but Marvin did mess up because he messed up the whole early Tyler situation and stuff, and not telling her things and lying to her face. So he did mess up, but I don't think she believes that he tried to replace her at any point. So I don't think Raquel would have him killed in any way. So if he was to be killed, it would either be from Stefano's people or early Tyler, I think. And I'm leaning more towards early Tyler because I feel like just the way Marvin spoke to him, like you pointed out, Richard, I feel like I don't think early Tyler's done getting his clap back yet. I don't think he's done getting his revenge because you're talking about he killed a family member. Now he kind of, I don't know the relationship between Stefano and the guy that died, like the guy that early Tyler that killed or whatever, because I understand that Stefano is mad about that and he could take retaliation on Marvin because of that situation. But I feel like the early Tyler one is a bit more personal just because these people grew up around each other. They're supposed to have a good rapport. And like that's his cousin. That's his blood. Like, so I feel like there's some retaliation coming from either early Tyler or maybe even Unique, because maybe early Tyler goes to Unique. And maybe we saw what happened in this episode with Lamar Jackson, I believe his name is. Is that his name, Richard? The footballer?
That's correct. Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically he comes into the episode and he's portrayed as this cold killer. And he took out what's the David?
Yeah.
Yeah, he took out David. He took out David. So I don't feel like that's going to be his only kill. I feel like he's going to use Lamar Jackson again. So maybe they hire him to take out Marvin. But I guess it depends what happens with this meeting as well with Raquel, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But yeah, I feel like it's going to be a situation like that. If Marvin does die, I feel like that's probably what's going to happen. It's going to be early Tyler getting his lick back on Marvin, I think. Um, and let's see what else did I put in my notes.
So I have a quick question for you though.
Yeah,
Is that going to be a topic, a question that you ask later? Because I do have something to say about that. So
go ahead and say it now. I was gonna, yeah, I am gonna ask later, but go ahead and say it now just to keep it going. Keep the.
Well, I just going to say that is a very good observation because you got to remember when Lou came back to Raquel and she was second guessing whether or not he really wants back in. he said before that, yes, because of what happened to Famous, I can't protect anybody from behind I think he said something about I can't protect anybody from behind a music board. So and again, we know for her concern is about his emotions getting caught up in what's happening. So yes, for him to come back, it is definitely a test. If something were to happen to Marvin, can you still handle doing the job? That's why it makes sense. Like you said, him coming back in now, Marvin slowly separating himself from what his sister is doing because now he's on the outs and he has made her upset multiple times this season. I definitely could see that happening. Although I will say this, they probably will slow the pace of the story a bit and save that death until next season. But hey, if they do decide to go with it in the next episode, that would be a hell of a way to end the season. I will say that much. And it will be heartbreaking for the fans, but something is going to happen to Marvin. I think like you said, after this episode, for sure something's going to happen to this character. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, I agree. Like this would be like the first big test of Lou being back in the game kind of thing if he loses Marvin and stuff. And they had a lot of bonding moments this season as well, so they're in a good place. So for him to lose Marvin, that would be kind of a big deal. But yeah, also, like I know there was also the picture that came out with all of the cast from next season, so like that would leave you to believe that no one dies, but I think they could pull the wool over our eyes with that. I think they could, sometimes I feel like they do these things intentionally to throw us off. So I feel like I'm not putting too much weight on that picture. I believe somebody probably could die, possibly still. So I will say that. And also, if Early Tyler is responsible for getting Marvin killed, I feel like this would give Jukebox a mission for maybe the next season. Like maybe she gets the get back, maybe she gets revenge or something like that, for her father's death. So I could see something like that happening as well. So another thing that could happen, if we're saying that Marvin is gonna get locked up, another thing that could happen is maybe Marvin is somehow connected to the death of the Foster family in some way. Now it could be maybe he left some evidence behind that traces back to him, or we don't know the state of the young girl's mental health right now because she has been through a lot. And just to see Marvin come in, bust through the door, and shoot down those people right before her eyes, that has to be traumatic for her, like for her and the baby. That has to be very traumatic. So you don't know if she's gonna talk. She might, she's just a child at the end of the day. If the police come in and they question her or whatever, maybe she has like a little carer or something, like maybe she has a care worker with her or something, and they try to ask her some questions about what happened, and she might actually give up some information because she's in a very traumatic state having seen that. And then also she lost her father as well, so she might give up some details and she might tie everything to Marvin also. So that could come back on him, and maybe instead of Marvin getting killed, maybe he actually gets locked up. And or maybe what could happen is, because it seems like they're setting something up with Jukebox also because she's befriended Garcia. So maybe there's some sort of crucial evidence that Marvin left behind, and she kind of appeals to Garcia to help her get rid of this evidence or something in exchange for her helping Garcia, because go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, when she got that intel about Crystal's dead body, he did tell her, now you owe me a favor. So that is the other thing, there is a favor that she's going to have to owe Garcia, and I'm very curious to see what that is. Probably going to find out next week.
Yeah, and maybe if this thing does happen, like this is just a wild theory. I'm not standing on what I'm saying right now. it might not happen, but I'm just throwing ideas out of what could happen based on, the information we have from this episode. Now, if Jukebox was to go to Garcia for help with Marvin or whatever, then she would owe him two favors. She would double owe him, and that puts him in a position of power in this kind of relationship, or whatever you want to call it, that they have. I don't mean relationship as in love or anything. It's just a connection between two characters. But yeah, like I feel like that gives Garcia more power over her to get a favor from her. And we know what happens with Jukebox. She does end up being a cop. She does end up enrolling as a police officer. So this could all lead into that, that thought process of her becoming a cop eventually. So I'm guessing that's where it's going. So it would make sense for her to eventually start doing that. And maybe she sees that if she does have the police on her side, or if she is a police officer, maybe she feels like she can better protect her family in that situation. So because I know that police is seen as a negative in this environment. Like, they don't trust the police, they don't like the police. That's the natural kind of that's the natural kind of emotion towards police in the neighborhood. But if she's thinking strategically and she was already with the military, then it makes sense that she would think, what, maybe I can help the family more from the inside. Maybe I can be that person on the inside that helps the situation. So yeah, just some other thoughts of what might happen with Marvin, because this episode, yeah, it's not looking good for Marvin at all. um it's not looking good. I'm nervous for him. I'm kind of scared of what's going to happen next week. But moving on to Raquel and Lou. So this was an interesting episode because you had kind of, I think this is the first direct conversation between Kanan and Unique, because the two characters, they've barely had scenes together throughout the whole of Power. I think the end of season 2, they had a moment where what happened? It was when Jukebox's mother got killed at Raquel's house, and I think Unique shows up, and then Kanan shows up after. So they kind of like meet in passing a little bit, but they don't really talk, they don't really interact or anything like that. So this meeting between the two characters in this episode was really like the first kind of conversation, the first kind of meeting of these characters. And it was very interesting to see it, because especially like one part one part was like, it really like it really showed Kanan's character and his heart when he basically owned up to killing Ronnie, and he was like, "Yeah, I killed him, and I would do it again right now." Like that part was cold. Like that that was hard. Like that was hard. I gotta give it to Mackay Curtis for that. Like that was a sick line right there. And he really impressed Unique, because Unique was like, I didn't have love for him anyway. And I think he was really impressed with the fact that Kanan just owned up to it right to his face, knowing that this is Ronnie's brother, and that showed Kanan has heart. So that was really cool to see. But obviously, Unique, he's playing chess right now, so he is going to use Kanan any way he can. He knows that this is Raquel's son. He knows that this is basically her heart. If he can manipulate Kanan or control Kanan, he has Raquel's heart. Now, counter to that, Raquel actually sees Kanan meeting with Unique. She sees him leaving. So she knows that, a conversation happened. And that's what's making me question her and Lou going to see Unique at the end. So we don't know, we haven't seen any trailers at this point. Um, we don't know what this meeting is going to entail, what's going to happen, but this is my guess. of what might happen. So I think that Raquel will step to Unique with the offer to kind of get rid of the mob together and kind of take over things, like, just operate as one big unit that kind of runs Southside, free of the mob, basically, because she has the Afghan connect and everything. Kwan is dead. So I think she's gonna offer him, look, let's get rid of the mob. Like, we'll get rid of Stefano. You get rid of, what's his face, the dude from Jersey, because Unique ain't really seeing eye to eye with him. Like, they've got they've got friction too. So, I feel like she's gonna step to him like, yo, let's why are we letting these mob people control us? Like, let's get rid of them and let's run Queens together. Like, let's run this whole thing together. Let's stop beefing and all that stuff, right? I think she's gonna come to him like that, because now she knows, she knows she needs to get rid of Stefano. I think, I don't know for sure, but I think she doesn't trust him now, because I think that she knows he was lying about Marvin, about, she's trying to manipulate the situation with Marvin. Um, so I think that that's the offer she's going to come to him with. Unique might try and play hardball with it. Um, and I feel like, maybe they come to some agreement. Maybe they don't completely agree on all the logistics, but I think maybe they come to some agreement and they're like, you know what, yeah, let's cut these mob ties or whatever. And maybe there is a plan to take out Stefano or whatever. And, I feel like Raquel is going to have her own motives. I feel like she is going to set up Unique. She's actually going to set him up to be killed throughout this whole process. Like, even though she's making an offer, making a deal, like, I think she sees him as dangerous. And the fact that Kanan is meeting with him now, I think she wants to do something about that. So I feel like her ultimate plan is to take him out. She has Lou now with her. So, this is a good test for him. So I think ultimately that might be her plan. Um, and, as for Kanan, wait, let me just check what I wrote here. Maybe that'll go through. Yeah. So as for Kanan, I, I mean, we already kind of talked about I hope that he's not that dumb to really believe Snap and Pops. Like, I hope that he comes to the conclusion for himself that, they're lying to him. Like, because yeah, he's seen them talk to the police. Like, he's seen Snaps and Pops talk to the police already. So, like, I just hope he's able to, the same way Raquel can probably figure out that Stefano was lying about Marvin and he's trying to run game on her. Like, I wish that Kanan in that moment knew that they were running game on him. But, this is a young Kanan, so he's got to learn the lesson. Go ahead.
No, you're right. I hope he is smarter, but I just want to say that was a very funny reaction he had when they said, "It was your mother, boy." It's like, wait a second, wait. So I was right. That was a funny reaction. I laughed when I saw that. It's like, no. So I'm curious to see where they go with that next week.
Yeah, yeah. So they just said, because I've only seen the episode once, right? They only said famous, right? They said that she
yeah.
had famous skills. So they didn't mention Crystal, right?
They did not mention Crystal, but the thing is
Okay.
that Jukebox knows Crystal was found dead, but she didn't have that conversation with Kanan yet. So that's probably going to happen to start the next episode. She's going to tell Kanan about this.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, I just hope Kanan figures it out, man. I hope he does, and I hope that ultimately he kind of sides with this new coalition with Raquel, Lou, and Unique to kind of take over. I hope he kind of becomes part of the plan. Um, and yeah, I just want to see him become the Kanan we know. I'm enjoying watching that process of him growing into older Kanan, him and Jukebox. Like, I'm really enjoying, watching that whole thing play out. And Yeah, was there something I was gonna say about Jukebox? Yeah, so Jukebox, she now knows that Crystal is dead. Um, and yeah, I want to see how that conversation goes when she finally tells Kanan, what happened. Um, and yeah, I think that's it. I think that's all I had for my takeaways. I know a lot of things happened, so we're gonna touch on some of the other nuances in our discussions. Um, so I spoke about the Raquel and Lou, showing up at Unique's place and everything. But what do you think is going to happen with that? Like, how do you think that meeting is going to go now?
Well, first and foremost, let me say, I think that your theory sounds very, 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 very excellent to me. As a very likely possibility that is what happens. But what I will say is this: is that one thing I do want to mention is that you made mention of the fact that she may present Unique with this idea. Yeah, you take out your people and I take out my people. And the thing is, we already know that Unique does not have a good relationship with the Russo guy, Phil Russo, the guy who he basically told him, you need to put together a team, then you talk to me about business. But that is a very interesting scenario here because I have been ever since he started interacting with that guy and he had that whole scene where he was crashing out in the car. I have been waiting for Unique to take that guy out. So I am hoping that does happen, but I do think he's going to play hard to get. But the other thing that I think is interesting about this episode is that E-Tone, that is the character that Lamar Jackson plays. That guy is not intimidated by Unique whatsoever. And I think that the whole thing about him having that interaction with him and how that guy said that he really didn't mind killing anybody. He did what he had to do. I think that is very interesting to pay attention to that because I think I made a comment to you. I made a text to you. Like I can see that E-Tone character being someone that goes toe to toe with Unique. Because I do think that if Raquel presents that idea to Unique, saying, yeah, get rid of what you have going on, I feel like the people who are working as a part of that New Jersey gang, they're going to have an issue with that because they saw how Kanan came to Unique earlier in that day and was talking with Kanan. And now Kanan is talking to Raquel, who is, again, this is their enemy. So I think they're going to question whether or not Unique can be trusted, and they may try to turn on him as well. The other thing I do want to mention is that if somehow Unique does agree to work with Raquel, and they both take out, if they take out Stefano, you take out Russo, so on and so forth, all the mob ties, that's fine. But I do think, one way or another, this season will end in a similar fashion to the way that last season ended. Whereas, rather how this season started, where Unique, he arrived to the scene where Ronnie was killed and Howard was killed, and he obviously told Kanan that when Kanan told him, like you said, he admitted to him that I killed Unique. There was a very great line in there where he said, family is not always familiar. He made that comment to Kanan. Well, I personally think that if Unique does agree to go with Raquel's plan, he also is going to have a plan. And I think his plan will be to kill Marvin or take out somebody that is important to important to Raquel and Kanan. Because again, then he can get the one up. That's how he gets his payback. He said, yeah, I'll go along with you on this plan, but I'm also going to do something else to hurt you. Because again, he still wants to hurt Raquel. It's very interesting how he believes that Raquel was plotting against him this whole time, and Kanan believes that Raquel obviously can't be trusted, that she's also been taking out his friends left and right. So that's why I said they have that in common. That's why I enjoyed the fact that they had a conversation in this episode, because I do want to see how that plays into things later. Because again, they can still be business partners, but they both have a hatred for Raquel. So I am very curious to see how this all comes together in the finale. But again, I do want to make a comment and say I do not think it's going to end cleanly in the next episode. I have a feeling it will be a cliffhanger because, like you said before, we already know that there's a season 5. There's a lot to get into with season 5. But I do think a lot of things you said is the perfect catalyst for season 5. So if something does happen to Marvin, like you said, that will give Jukebox motivation going into next season to get some revenge. But I do want to see how it all comes together. But I do think it goes without saying somebody needs to go in this finale, whether it's Stefano getting killed or Marvin. Somebody has to go. And can it be a secondary character? Sure, but I think it needs to be. I think at this point they've held off long enough where I think a main character. It's time for a main character to go. But again, we'll see how everything plays out.
Oh yeah, I agree that however this meeting goes with Raquel and Unique, like they're probably gonna act like they agree to the plan, but yeah, they're both gonna be trying to one up the other. They're both gonna try and outsmart the other in some way. Absolutely. Um, and yeah, to your second point, somebody definitely has to die in this finale. I feel for it to be satisfying, I feel like a death has to happen, and I'm putting my money on either Stefano, Marvin, or Unique. Um, there may be some, there may be some other supporting cast who gets taken out also, but though I think one of those big names could get taken out.
I agree. And let me just add one quick point. I will give a shout out to Dana because she made this comment in the past. I feel like B-Rilla at some point will get taken out because, like Dana made the comment, they made it a point to show you his baby, his girl. Clearly, that is that was shown for a reason, for you to pull on the heartstrings to emphasize this character. He's trying to do right by his family. He's trying to do what he can to take care of his daughter. So in tragedy, his life is going to end, especially if he decides he's going to get involved with Lou. And I do think, honestly, if Marvin isn't taken out, the B-Rilla death is going to be what impacts Lou, because Lou obviously he made the comment about the fact that he wanted to get revenge after what happened with Famous. Well, I kind of think they're going to slowly make B-Rilla be another close friend with Lou to the point where it's a similar relationship. It's not going to be the same as what he had with Famous, but this is someone who made him look at music again a little bit differently, want to get back into doing it. So it will make sense for him to now feel some guilt when something does happen to B-Rilla, because I kind of feel like that's the direction they're going to take it, because he did save him from going to jail, but he cannot save him from catching that bullet that's eventually coming for him. So stay tuned for that.
Wow. Yeah. I could definitely see maybe something happens to B-Rilla, because I could see a scenario where if Raquel's plan is to kind of, take out Stefano or the mob or whatever, maybe Lou enlists the help of B-Rilla for a certain thing, whether it's to be the driver or to back him up or something. Like maybe he, because he did say that he's ready for some action. Like if he needs help, he's ready. So maybe Lou does give him that call to come along and help out, and maybe something happens to B-Rilla in the process. And then, yeah, that would definitely, weigh heavy on him, because he was the one to kind of bring B-Rilla into the situation. So I think that would be a big, mental test for Lou as well, if that were to happen. So yeah, I agree. I could see something like that happening. Um, and yeah, speaking of Lou, like, what do you think about him, just deciding to leave the music business behind, and then, his whole relationship with Imani, like how that just kind of dissolved and stuff, because he was lying and stuff. Like what do you think about all of that?
Well, it feels like the Imani relationship was going to come to an end, because she asks so many questions, wants to know so much information. And I understand. Now, obviously, the previous episode, after his mom had passed, she was trying to be, offer some support as far as talking with him about it. But still, when they introduced this character from the very beginning, she always was very inquisitive, doing research, trying to get answers and psychoanalyze who he was, try to get his backstory, his relationship with Jessica. So she has been fishing for information. And I want to give a shout out to the commenters last week because they thought that she was an informant with all the stuff that she was trying to pull up on Lou. It's like you're asking a lot of questions, so on and so forth. So I don't really know if anything that she knows about him could come back and hurt him later. I mean, we have to wait and see. I just thought it was very interesting how she just decided to end the relationship, but also end the working relationship as well. That is very suspicious, right? Because clearly, you know, obviously you still have all these artists you want to market and work with. So you not trusting Lou is fine on a business level, but the thing about it is that from the minute that this started, Lou was only focused on business. He wasn't getting into this to get into a relationship, but she obviously, once they got close together, that's what it was all about. So that's why I said, got attached very quickly, but then tried to really dissect him further and get into his mind and all the things that he was doing. So I feel like the relationship needed to end. And again, like we saw last week, Lou found his smile again with that whole scene, the epic scene at the end of the last episode where he takes out, you know, the two guys. It's like, yeah, this is the character that people wanted to see. But obviously, you understand all that he's been through throughout this entire show, the struggles that he has had. So now him putting this all to the test by deciding to go back into the street game, it makes it very interesting. So I will say, yeah, I'm glad that he did go down this path because he's had multiple opportunities to get out of this. You know, even with Jessica, when she left, he could have just left with her to go to Los Angeles. He said, no, I'm staying here in New York. This is all I know. This is where I want to be at. So it's only a matter of time with all the stuff happening. He is still going to get wrapped up in all the stuff that's going on. And then obviously with Unique revealing himself to the family, obviously he wants to get back involved and do what he can to protect the family. So it makes sense. But no, I didn't have any problem with him deciding to go back to this because, again, we saw he was very comfortable last week after he took out those two guys and said, okay, yeah, that's what made me excited to see what was going to happen in this episode as the follow-up, because clearly I could see he wants to do this, so he should just go ahead and do this. So we'll see where they go from here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like him leaving the label and stuff did feel very abrupt, but I think it was supposed to feel that way because, you know, it's a reaction to him killing those guys last week. It's like he realized that he enjoyed it so much that he's ready to push all of that aside, you know. So yeah, I guess that's what they were going for. But yeah, it's real interesting. Like the when he had the conversation with Raquel, kind of explaining his motivations and stuff, like it definitely made sense. And like, you know, the fact that he was scared of how much he enjoyed, you know, killing D-Riz's brother and stuff like that. Like he enjoyed it too much, and that's what kind of scared him and made him want to fall back because he realizes that it can't be right. You know, it's not right to feel this way. So that was, you know, that was deep. That was very deep, that conversation. But yeah, I definitely want to see the follow up of that. You know, I want to see how he carries himself and conducts himself moving forward. And as for Imani, she was definitely asking a lot of federal type questions in this throughout this season. So I understand why everybody thinks that she might be a snitch of some sorts, and she could be. But the only thing is, it's like, do you really go to that extent if you're a snitch, like to sleep with the person, like to you know, get involved romantically? Like I feel like that's taking your role very seriously if you'll go to that extent, you know, to snitch on him. But
oh yeah,
who knows?
We definitely seen people go to extreme depths to try to keep their cover. A lot of movies, you know, we saw it in New Jack City. I mean, all these different movies. But obviously, yeah, there are levels to what you're supposed to do. So obviously, maybe she did care about Lou, but when you're asking all these questions, it's like that could be quite annoying. So I understand why people would say, "Wait, hold on, why is she asking all of this stuff?" So I don't know, but we will find out what happens. But I will say this though, him leaving abruptly, as you say, totally 100% not suspicious not suspicious at all, right? After all this happens and then you just leave abruptly, I'm pretty sure Lowell won't think anything. He will be like, oh yeah, he just decided he wanted to leave. But wait a minute, was she right when she said there's a reason why she left? So I'm curious to see what the fallout will be from this. Probably won't be any fallout because now they're going to just focus on Lou dealing with the street stuff now. And again, this whole war with Unique. But yeah, this is where he is best served at right now. The only question I have is, Raquel asked him, so is this it? You're fully committed? The music goes away. He said, no, the music is still going to be a part of me. So obviously we know he still has the club, which is good, but I don't know if he's going to be making any more music. I mean, that's what I do want to see what happens. But I will say this. I do think as this war intensifies, that club might be getting shot up. So stay tuned for that because, again, it's going to get deep. It's going to get personal back and forth. So there will be casualties as a result of that. So I do expect B-Rilla to get taken out. That club going to probably get damaged, and several other things are going to happen. But it is going to happen as he starts to really get fully involved in what's happening with Unique.
Oh yeah, definitely. So moving on to Kanan now. Like I do want to highlight before I ask the question, I do want to highlight that I enjoyed the scene where Kanan was trying to figure out where Crystal is, and he goes to see her dad or whatever, and he casually asks her like, "Oh, have you heard from her or whatever?" And the dad says something, slick or whatever, and then he starts beating him up, like just beating him up and kicking him and stuff like that. Like that was that definitely felt like Kanan, like because I remember in the original Power, like he was definitely beating people up. There was a mechanic or something that he was beating up and throwing him around the room and stuff. So that felt very Kanan, to just start whooping his ass, like just because well, it was justified because this guy was abusing Crystal and stuff. So yeah, like that was cool to see. But speaking of Kanan, though, how will Kanan react to Crystal's death? Because Jukebox, she found out, and she's probably going to tell him, in the next episode. Now, it's just the way things are kind of like paced out at the moment, right? So he's just been told by Snap and Pops that Raquel was the one who killed Famous, right? Now, in the next scene, if we see Jukebox telling him that Crystal is dead, and he really believes that it was Raquel who killed Famous, he's probably going to put two and two together and be like, I can't believe she did this, and I've only seen the episode once, so I can't remember. But did anyone say that Raquel was the last one to see Crystal? I think Raquel might have.
Yep, Raquel did say that Crystal stopped by and visited her, and that was why she was compelled to talk to him, because Crystal said, "Hey, I'm concerned about your son. You need to talk to him." So that was the whole reason why she agreed to meet him in Jukebox at the, to come to be at the diner.
Right. Yeah. So he knows that she actually met with Crystal. So like she's probably the last person to see her, maybe. Like so, I think he's definitely gonna blame Raquel for that. Without even doing any due diligence to figure out. He's not gonna investigate to make sure it was her. He's gonna put the fact that he was told it was Famous with the fact that Crystal was dead, and he's probably gonna blame her instantly. Because this Kanan doesn't know how to think critically yet. So yeah, like it's gonna be bad. And one way this could go is maybe Kanan betrays his mother. Maybe he sides with Unique and helps Unique, go against the family or something of that nature. These are things that could happen in the finale. I just hope personally that Jukebox kind of guides him in the right direction, and helps him figure out that Snaps and Pops are the real bad guys. And I definitely feel like the whole Snaps and Pops situation it's likely going to be some sort of cliffhanger, and like that's going to be like the main conflict of the next season is, those two probably being at the head of the table or whatever. Those they're probably going to be like the main bad guys, I guess. Depending what happens with Unique, because we don't know how that's going to go. We don't know if Unique's going to get taken out, or I definitely think there's going to be some sort of cliffhanger of maybe it looks like somebody dies, at the end of the episode, and then we gotta wait till next year to find out. Like something's gonna happen like that, like some sort of cliffhanger. Just because there's so many lingering plot lines at this point, and we only have one episode left. So it's like, how is this all gonna summarize? Like it's definitely gonna be a cliffhanger. But how do you think Kanan, the question is, how do you think Kanan is going to react when he finds out about Crystal? So go ahead.
Well, I think Kanan is going to be devastated. We saw his reaction to Famous, OC, and Crystal. Now, I do think the Crystal one is going to be a lot more emotional because he had a relationship with her. At one point, she did get pregnant, and then he had told her to get an abortion. So, but they were living together, and obviously she really did have his back. Once again, I know we speculated on this show, maybe this character might have other motivations, but I'm glad to see that she really truthfully was a ride or die. And unfortunately, that's why I said I was so shocked to see her get taken out the way she did, because it was very brutal. It's very brutal, man. I mean, I had to think twice about that. It's like, yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. And it really makes you hate Pops and Smack even more as characters, because you want justice. You want to see these characters get taken out. That's why I'm hoping that Kanan eventually figures this stuff out on his own. When I made the comment earlier how he was talking with Unique, and then Unique just brings up OC before Kanan asks him mentions OC by name, that I thought was very interesting. That made me think, what did Kanan pick up on that observation, and now he thinks, maybe this guy does know more about what happened to OC and he's not telling me, because obviously he's only concerned about Crystal at the moment. But I did think that was interesting. So what I would like to see in the next episode is a lot of details will start to come out, that some information that maybe it's information that Jukebox gets that she's able to share with Kanan that will make him know, okay, maybe Raquel didn't do this. But I do want to see what information is going to come out that makes him now suspect Snaps and Pops. Because in the previous episode, when they met with those two cops, they wanted to make sure they tied up all loose ends and that there was nothing that can tie them back to this murder, what happened with Famous. And while they obviously did take out Crystal in this episode, I still think there is something that they did sloppily that may come back to them later. But I just have no idea where it's going to come from. So obviously I do want to see where they're going with that. But to answer your question, I think Kanan will be very angry in the next episode. He will obviously blame Raquel. This may make him want to plot to go after Raquel. And Jukebox is going to have to be the one to try to, let him see that she really didn't do this. But I don't know how she's going to do that. But one comment I do want to make really quickly before you go back to you. One thing I obviously this show has been fantastic. The writing, all of this stuff has been great. I do think as you get into the storytelling, we have made comments that, when the season, as they were telling the story, it did move a little bit slow. And then when it came to certain revelations, it's like, okay, you understand. Yeah, it makes sense that is who was behind this. The Snaps and Pops thing, I think, that made sense because these characters, they haven't really been seen that much this season. So for you to reveal that they were the ones behind all this stuff that's happening, I think that was great. That was a great twist. But what I want to say is, what makes me interested is to see what are the twists coming that we can't figure out. Because I feel like with this show, they have an opportunity to make a lot of different things go in different directions. So I don't want it to be too predictable in terms of what happens. I still am expecting to be surprised. That's why I do hope something major happens in the finale, because like you said, that it will make the entire season perfect. But the entire season has been fantastic so far. I'm just saying, I want them to basically go in a direction with the story that we didn't see coming. and it's in a really surprising way. Like all the stuff with Unique last season and the fact that he could have been dead, and that they got everybody on that because clearly that was very well done in terms of then how they explain what happened. I thought that was also very well done. So I just want to see what is going to be the next big thing that they show us in this show to make us excited. Because obviously, as a fan, after watching this episode, now I want Kanan to get some payback from all the stuff that happened this season. But I feel like with the snaps and pops thing, that may not come immediately. That may be, like you said before, the big bad villains for next season. But there is some stuff that has to get tied up to make this season end on a satisfying note. So I'm just very curious to see what they're going to do from that standpoint.
Yeah, I agree with you because that has been a big critique of a lot of people. Like this was a much slower season and stuff. Um, and people are that now they want to see it. They want to see something happen. So if this kind of ends in a lackluster way or a cliffhanger that's not very satisfying, it will definitely make people judge this season. Now, me personally, I don't mind like when a show's like when the pace of the story is slower if it's entertaining and if there's like good character development and stuff. And I feel like this show definitely gave us that. Like it gave us a lot of great character development along the way, even if the plot was moving a bit slow in the first half. So I think they still did a great job with that. Um, but yeah, and one of my critiques with some of the other power shows in the past was like the plot was just moving way too fast and like just jumping all over the place and stuff. So I feel like this episode, I mean, sorry, this season of Raising Kanan has done an excellent job with like pacing. I feel like, but I do understand people's critiques though with the pacing, in the first half. But me personally, I'm still fine with it. Um, but yeah, I agree that something does need to happen though, and we are due some surprises. And one of the big surprises that everyone's waiting for is the revelation of Breeze. Like we still need to get this character. We need to who is Breeze, and how is he going to be introduced. So that is something that I would love to see in the next episode, and it would get people hyped for season 3 also. And yeah, we've lost Richard here. I'm sure he'll be back in a moment. Let me just make sure it's not my internet playing up. No, I think my internet is good. Yeah, so Richard will be back, I'm sure. But yeah, like they've got to go out with a bang, like to get us excited for season 5. Like something major has to happen in the next episode. Um, and yeah, I feel like we're due a major death. I feel like it has to happen in season 10. I mean, sorry, episode 10. I'm sorry, yo. It's almost 10:30 here, so my brain's kind of like taking a dive. But yeah, so I guess the only other thing is, what will Marvin's fate be in the next episode? That's what I was gonna ask Richard. Like, is he gonna make it out this episode alive? I've been seeing some people say that, and on Facebook and stuff, I've been seeing people say that he's not in episode 10, which would be really weird. I need to look into that. Um, if that would be weird if he's just not in the episode at all. Uh, but yeah, I feel like episode 10 is going to be, it's going to be rough on Marvin. I feel like something bad is going to happen to the character. And I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to if he dies. It's my favorite character. London Brown does a great job. Um, okay, Richard said he's trying to rejoin now, so that's good. Um, yeah, uh, I'm not ready for Marvin to be gone, but we do need that. We need something major to happen though to keep us talking, to keep us invested. To see what the fallout, what the reaction is going to be in season 5. So I feel like if he does go in the next episode, then it's justified. It's completely justified. But it's my favorite character, so what can I say? But yeah, man, raising Kanan, you know, this was my thoughts on this episode. This was another good one. Oh, we got Richard back. Uh-oh.
Yeah, so I guess the cops do not like me talking about the show. It's a random outage, the same outage that Dana's having. I don't know what that was all about, but it's fine now. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. But what was the last thing you heard me say though?
You were talking about another topic you were about to get into. This is after you came in, so I don't know anything that you said after that because I got cut out very randomly.
Okay. Yeah, I was saying like, so what will Marvin's fate be in episode 10? And I've actually been on some Facebook groups and stuff, like, leading up to the release of episode 9, when nobody knows nothing, nobody knew nothing about episode 9 at this point. And I saw a lot of discussions on Facebook of people saying Marvin isn't in episode 10. And in my mind, I was like, where's that coming from? Like, where are they getting that information from? So a lot of people are actually thinking that he's going to die before they even saw episode 9, so like, that's wild to me, but I do feel like it's a possibility though, that the character could be gone in the next episode, like he could get taken out, or, maybe he goes on a run. That's another possibility too. But yeah, what would you think Marvin's fate is going to be in episode 10?
Okay, so that's a very good question. London Brown has been doing an outstanding job on this show as this character. We've had a chance to see this character at their lowest and at their highest. Nothing but awesome character development from season 1 to now. So, and as we've already made the comments before, Jukebox, obviously, he is accepting of the fact that she is very much like him. I think, like you said, you made an excellent point that it would make sense for something to happen to Marvin, because then that could be the catalyst for Jukebox having her own thing that she's going to be really searching for answers for next season. So that makes sense to me. But here's what I will say for Marvin. There's a lot going on with this character in the show right now. You think about the stuff that happened with Amber. And again, I didn't think that was going to take that particular turn. We know that, like I said earlier, Amber has gone through a lot on this show with what happened to her dad and her sister. For her to see those two people get killed the way they did, that's definitely going to mess with her, I think, mentally. I don't think that she would per se rat out Marvin. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with that. But I will say this, you have that going on with Marvin. You have the whole thing with Early Tyler. And the thing is, Raquel told Marvin when he made that decision to get them involved, to take out both Early Tyler and Londell. And Marvin's like, nah, Early Tyler, I'm not worried about that situation. But we know as viewers, Early Tyler is the one that played a pivotal role in getting Unique back to his place where he could have some time to recover and get him back up and running. So clearly, he can definitely tell Unique, hey, I need you to deal with Marvin. Take him out. So they can go in that direction. The other issue, however, is you have the mafia involved in this, the mob. And the thing about it is this, when they, from the minute that they decided to really put the Italians in this particular show, and they talk to you about being a made man, I'm of the mindset, and this is just my opinion, that the showrunner, Sasha Penn, I kind of think at some point in this show, he's going to show one of those really brutal deaths that happen from somebody at the hands of the mafia. We've seen it in Goodfellas, all other types of movies. So I'm thinking that could be what happens to Marvin. Marvin could be the person that falls victim to that and is taking out that way. Or it could be E-Tone, played by Lamar Jackson. And by the way, I think Lamar Jackson did a pretty good job in the role. Didn't have that many lines, but very convincing as somebody who you don't want to mess with. So I do want to see where they go with him long term. I still think that that can end up being somebody that Unique has to deal with, because it feels like, in my situation, in my opinion, from watching this, I feel like even if Unique does have success with this group, he grows over time. This is somebody who will come after him for his spot and try to replace him, because we've seen that happen multiple times in power shows where there are other characters who are under another character that now they turn on that character and they take over. So Unique is still in trouble too. But to answer your question about Marvin specifically, there are multiple ways they can take Marvin out. Um, and I think, and I do think that the show is designed that way to play these games to make you think certain stuff could happen. Because even, let's go back to the previous season with all the stuff happening to Lou, and they made you think, oh, Raquel is and Marvin are they're gonna take out Lou, and really what they did is they took him to rehab so he can get right. So they can definitely be pulling a red herring with all the stuff with Marvin, have you think that something bad is going to happen to him, and then in the last episode, nothing happens. He gets off scot-free, or maybe he escapes, takes a hiatus somewhere. I don't know. But I do think, regardless of what they decide to do, it's still going to be a very bad ending for Marvin. It just feels that way because this entire season, I think, and this is just my opinion. Now, obviously, you can tell me, as well as the commenters, tell me if I'm wrong. It feels like Marvin has been more violent and brutal this entire season than he's been on for the entirety of the show. Obviously, yes, you go back to the harsh, the way he treated Jukebox in the beginning when he found out that she was gay by assaulting her. Yeah, that was disturbing to watch. But it feels like for this entirety of this season, nearly every episode, Marvin has been beating somebody up or getting down and dirty with somebody, or himself also, where he also got killed. He got stabbed in one of the episodes, almost got killed by that other guy, Aaron. So I feel like, yes, he has been the most violent he has been this entire season. That will come with some consequences. And I feel like if you've been watching this entire season, you can't go into episode 10 thinking something bad isn't going to happen to him. But again, we'll have to wait and see what they do, because they can easily prolong it into next season. But I think everything you said about something happening to him makes sense for the finale, because again, it will set up the Jukebox story for next season. But we have to wait and see what they're going to do. But I'm very curious to see what happens. But again, like I said, London Brown has been phenomenal on this show. He's given so much to the show. So I wouldn't mind if they decide to take the character out. But we got to see how they do it from a storyline standpoint.
Yeah, you make excellent points. And yeah, Marvin has been on a rampage this season, and like he hasn't been this violent, in in any other season with regards to killing and stuff. And it's just there's subtle things that have happened throughout this season that are like it feels like it's setting up for something tragic to happen to Marvin, because it's like you had the whole thing with the mother, where she basically told him, "Oh, I can't rely on you for anything," basically playing into that insecurity of he always messes up and makes mistakes and stuff like that. He does the same thing with Raquel, because now he messed up the Stefano situation and stuff. So, just playing into those insecurities, and then, he just had a lot of like moments where we see the anger management isn't working. He loses his temper, he kills people, and I just feel like it's really setting up to some sort of tragedy or conclusion to his story, sadly. And I know that I said, you know, and I still believe that Raquel is too smart to believe Stefano about, Marvin wanting to take over. I believe that she is too smart to fall for that. But let's play devil's advocate. And I want to, talk about one of my favorite movies of all time. Well, two of them is The Godfather 1 and 2. And I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, Rich, this series,
Oh
but
yeah.
yeah, so you probably know where I'm going with it. But in Godfather 2, there's a situation where Michael Corleone, he's the head of the family, and he has this kind of beef with this character called Hyman Roth, And Hyman Roth actually tries to set up Michael Corleone to be killed. And later on in the film, Michael Corleone finds out that, there's a mole in the family that helped Hyman Roth with the hit. And he finds out that it's his brother, his brother Fredo was the one who actually, helped Hyman Roth, like set him up. And one of the things Michael says after finding this out, Michael Corleone says these words. He says, "Nothing's going to happen to Fredo while my mother is still alive." Right? And then later on in the movie, the mother passes away, sadly, and the movie ends. At the end, one of the things that happens at the end of the movie is, and at this point, he's kind of reconciled with his brother and that they have a good relationship. But one of the things that happens at the end of the movie, and this is shortly after the mother dies, he sets up his brother to be killed. Like his brother is killed while fishing, right? Now, let's look at Raising Kanan. What's one thing that just happened? The mother died.
Yep.
So if Raquel does believe Stefano, maybe in her mind all bets are off, and she feels like she doesn't have to be loyal to Marvin because she feels like he betrayed her, and he's also been messing up too much and stuff and causing problems because he also caused problems with the distribution. Because one of the things that happened in this episode is David got taken out. But, even if David got taken out, if the other guy was still there, they would still be good. But now she's kind of compromised because she kind of has to go to Unique because now she doesn't have anyone to move the product, so the business has been hurt now because of, Marvin's actions and Unique. But yeah, so who knows? This could be where it goes. And one thing I do want to say real quick before I go to you is this could also be something that sets up maybe Jukebox not liking Raquel anymore because we know Kanan already doesn't like her. So if Raquel were to be involved in getting rid of Marvin, and maybe Jukebox doesn't find out right away, but she finds out later on in season 5, maybe that's motivation now for both Kanan and Jukebox to kind of, maybe it ends with them killing Raquel or something, who knows? But go ahead, Richard, you were going to say something.
Oh, well, that'll be a quite very, very dramatic if that happens. No, the only point I was going to say is I think you made a very good point with those comparisons. The only thing I was going to say is, yeah, you're 100% right. Now Raquel, she really only has Unique because remember that she did talk with Stefano, and Stefano say, yeah, I could help you out temporarily with some drivers or something to get the product moving. But that relationship is complicated now because right after he said that, that's when he said, okay, let me talk to you alone. And that was when he told her about Marvin. So yes, they're going to have to deal with Stefano. And that it makes you very wondering what is going to happen in the next episode. Yes, Unique. She worked with Unique. They come to some understanding, but yeah, there's going to definitely be some people that are not going to do as they say in this agreement. So I want to see how that comes together. But no, I agree with every point that you made. I'm very curious to see where they're going to take the story because they have a lot of different ways they can take it from here on out.
Yeah, there's many ways it could go. So I'm real interested to see what they actually do in episode 10 because there's so many ways the story could go at this point. But yeah, any final thoughts before we wrap this up? Like any final thoughts or anything we didn't mention that you feel like we should?
Oh, no, I think we mentioned everything. I do want to again apologize to the people for my technical difficulties. A network issue randomly happened over here, but overall, yeah, I thought it was a great episode. I look forward to us having Dana on the next episode because I'm sure that she would have had a lot to say about this episode. But again, stay tuned. There is a lot more Raising Kanan coming. And as I said, the next week when the finale drops, all three of us will be here. So we'll definitely have a lot more to discuss for sure.
Yeah, even if we have to delay the episode, we're gonna make sure all three of us are here for the
Yeah.
finale. So yeah, absolutely. Was you gonna say something else? You unmuted.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, that is gonna be it for our recap of episode 9. It's about that time. Yeah, excellent episode. These last few episodes have been really good in my opinion. Like, from episode 6 onwards, like, yeah, I feel like it's been a great run of episodes. So props to Sasha Penn, props to the whole Stars network and everything. Um, and yeah, we'll be back next week to cover the finale. So please do leave your comments because I love seeing what the people have to say. And yeah, we'll be back next week. Peace out, everyone. Take care.
Peace out.